And Mali's Tuareg rebels, involved in a continuing uprising, including the assassination of the country's defense minister, have said they want to drive the military government's Russian backers out of the country. Mohammed El Maulud Ramadan, and a spokesperson for the Azawad Liberation Front FLA, and told the AFP news agency during a visit to Paris to meet French security and defense officials that his movement's objective was for Russia's Africa Corps to withdraw permanently from the country. And tech billionaire Elon Musk has taken the stand for a second day in a landmark United States trial against Sam Altman, a fellow OpenAI co-founder whom he accuses of betraying promises to keep the company a non-profit dedicated to humanity's benefit. The trial centers on OpenAI's 2015 founding as a non-profit that later evolved into a for-profit venture.
Ukraine has asked Israel to seize a vessel carrying grain it says was stolen from areas occupied by Russia, its top prosecutor said, amid a diplomatic tussle between the two countries over the shipment. Ukraine's prosecutor General Ruslan Kravchenko said on Telegram on Wednesday that the vessel Panomitis was headed to the Israeli port of Haifa with grain, some of which was shipped from Russian-occupied regions of Ukraine.
And the United Arab Emirates is quitting OPEC, and the oil-producing bloc is losing one of its most important members. This comes during the worst global energy crisis of modern times, caused by the US-Israel war on Iran, which has hit the UAE hard.
Florida's Republican-dominated state legislature has approved a new congressional map, the latest salvo in an unprecedented national battle of redistricting before the midterm elections in November. The vote in both the Florida State Senate and House on Wednesday comes just days after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis unveiled the new map, which heavily favors Republicans.
And nobody said building a fusion power plant would be easy. Physicists and engineers have been working for decades to crack the problem. But over the last year or so, fusion startup Zap Energy took a deeper look at its pathway to a working power plant and decided that it would be quicker to build a fission power plant first. And Hungary's Prime Minister-elect Péter Magyar has met EU leaders in Brussels for the first time since his Tisza party won a landslide election on the 12th April, sweeping away 16 years of rule by Viktor Orbán. After talks with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, which he called extremely constructive and successful, Magyar said that in one sentence, EU resources will soon arrive in Hungary. And President Donald Trump says the United States will continue its naval blockade of Iran until a nuclear deal is reached with Tehran. The US president told Axios on Wednesday that he does not want to end his blockade on Iranian ports, apparently rejecting the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz so that US-Iran talks could proceed. And United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has faced his first public questioning from Congress on the US-Israel war with Iran. Over hours of tense testimonies alongside Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane, Hegseth battered away questions about the long-term goals and timeline of war, which began with the US-Israel launching attacks on Iran on February 28.
The United States Federal Reserve has held interest rates steady at 3.5 to 3.75% as inflation and pressure on the labour market during the US-Israel war on Iran weigh on the global economy. The central bank announced its decision, which was largely in line with economists' expectations, on Wednesday, wrapping up the last two-day policy meeting led by Chairman Jerome Powell.
And a magistrate has ordered that the youngest son of the late Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe is to be deported immediately from South Africa after pleading guilty to two offences earlier this month. A court in Johannesburg on Wednesday ordered Bellarmine Mugabe to pay a fine of $36,000 or face a 2-year prison sentence for brandishing a toy gun in a manner that created the impression it was real, as well as for being in the country illegally.
the British government risks stretching counter-terrorism laws beyond their original purpose by using such powers against activist groups, a United Kingdom terrorism watchdog has said. In his annual report examining the use of Britain's terrorism legislation during 2024, independent reviewer Jonathan Hall said the subsequent banning of pro-Palestine group Palestine Action had exposed real uncertainty over whether serious damage to property alone should qualify as terrorism.
Parallel Web Systems, the AI agent tool startup founded by former Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal, has raised a $100 million Series B at a $2 billion valuation led by Sequoia. Existing investors Kleiner Perkins Index Ventures, Kostler Ventures, First Round Capital, Spark Capital and Terrain Capital also participated, the company said. This raise comes just 5 months after the startup announced its $100 million Series A at a $740 million valuation led by Kleiner and Index, and brings the total capital it raised to $230 million. Brent crude oil prices have surged sharply late on Wednesday, briefly touching 119.50 cents per barrel as rising tensions linked to the Iran war and the Hormuz blockade shock energy markets. The latest spike marks the highest level for Brent crude since 2022, with prices climbing nearly 7% in a single trading session.
And Gwadar Port has recorded a sharp rise in cargo activity in April 2026 as instability in and around the Strait of Hormuz forces shipping operators to reroute vessels across the Arabian Sea. During the month, the port handled around 11,000 shipping containers alongside multiple shipments of general cargo, including machinery and fertilizer. The increase marks a significant jump in activity compared to historical levels.
Sea-Link Group Limited has announced its intention to acquire at least 83.41% stake and control of Pakistan International Container Terminal Limited. In a notice to the Pakistan Stock Exchange, the proposed transaction includes the acquisition of 7.97% shares through agreements and an additional 8.43% through a public offer, taking total control beyond the regulatory threshold. The Cambridge International Education, CI, said on Wednesday it was aware of news about a reported paper leak of a question paper, as several users on social media expressed ire. We investigate such reports thoroughly and will provide more information to centres, if required, during or after the end of timetabled exams for the June 2026 series, the CIE said in its official statement.
Oil prices shot higher Wednesday on concerns of an extended blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, while Wall Street stocks mostly slid as investors awaited a US Fed rate decision and a slew of tech firm earnings. Both main oil contracts jumped nearly 6% after President Donald Trump warned Tehran on Wednesday that it should get smart soon and capitulate to Washington's demands for tight controls on its nuclear program, as a US naval blockade turned the screws on Iran's economy.
A former French serviceman has been detained in Madagascar for allegedly taking part in a plot to destabilise the island. Authorities say prosecutor Nominarinera Mihamintsoa Ramanantsoa said the French national had been charged with multiple offences, including criminal conspiracy and plotting to sabotage infrastructure such as power lines and thermal plants.
For generations of football fans, no World Cup would be complete without the thrill of opening a packet of Panini stickers and discovering Zico, Franz Beckenbauer, Diego Maradona or Lionel Messi staring back. Since Italian company Panini's first sticker collection at the 1970 World Cup in Mexico, trying and usually failing to complete the set has been an obsession for young fans around the globe, with playground swapping mandatory.
And the families of victims of a school shooting in a remote Canadian Rockies town are suing artificial intelligence company OpenAI in a United States federal court and alleging that the ChatGPT maker failed to alert police to the shooter's alarming interactions with the chatbot. A lawsuit filed on Wednesday on behalf of 12-year-old Maya Gabala, who was critically injured in the February shooting and is among the first of more than 24 cases from families in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, in what their lawyers say represents an entire community stepping forward to hold OpenAI accountable.
President Donald Trump's critics and free speech advocates in the United States are decrying a decision by his administration to review the broadcast licenses of several ABC channels, calling the move Federal Communications Commission, FCC, announced on Tuesday, followed Trump and his wife, Melania, calling for the firing of ABC host Jimmy Kimmel over a joke he told last week.
And the United States Supreme Court ruled that Louisiana's electoral map was unconstitutionally drawn to create 2 black majority districts. The decision announced on Thursday represented a major interpretation of the landmark U.S. Voting Rights Act, in particular its provision meant to protect minority voters from having their political power diluted. It is set to benefit Republicans amid a wider battle before the midterm elections redistricting before the midterm elections in November. And after decades of membership, the United Arab Emirates has decided to quit the oil producers group, OPEC, in order to focus on national interests and forge its own path, it has said. The move is seen as a major blow to the Vienna-based oil cartel, but will not spell the end of it altogether. Observers say the UAE's decision to quit comes after years of open dissatisfaction with the oil cartel's policy of capping members' production as a way to control prices and stabilize the market.
SpaceX Board of Directors has approved a performance-based compensation plan for Chief Executive Officer Elon Musk that keeps his salary fixed at $54,000 per year unless the company achieves its long-term goal of building a permanent human settlement on Mars. Both Musk and his pet company are preparing for what is expected to be one of the largest initial public offerings in modern world history.
The Privatization Commission has approved the transaction structure and restructuring plan for the privatization of Zarai Tarakiati Bank Limited, marking a key step forward in the government's divestment program. The decision was taken during the 251st meeting of the Privatization Commission Board, chaired by Mohammed Ali. The board endorsed the proposed structure after detailed deliberations with the aim of maximizing value for the government of Pakistan. South Waziristan. Mortar shells fired from across the Pak-Afghan border injured 5 people, 4 children and a woman in the Angor Ada village of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's South Waziristan district on Wednesday, according to security sources. The sources said that the shells struck the homes of 2 residents of the village and that the injured children were between the ages of 3 and 13.
And new images included in a memorandum filed by the US government show Cole Thomas Allen, the man accused of opening fire at a White House correspondents' dinner last weekend, with weapons in a hotel room before the attack. Prosecutors submitted the photos along with new details of the suspect's activities before the 25th of April incident in their motion to keep Allen detained pending trial. And French prosecutors have launched an investigation into the reappearance of a website known for facilitating the crimes of Dominique Pellicot, who recruited dozens of strangers to rape his wife, Giselle Pellicot. Its precursor, Coco.gg, was an unmoderated platform offering registration-free access to chat rooms with French authorities, linking it to sexual abuse of children, drug offences, rape and murder.